Like many guitar players, I'd like to be a better guitar player. I've played for about 12 or 13 years now, and I think I could be a lot better. I came across an idea recently, which you may be familiar with. It's in this book called Outliers by Malcom Gladwells. In it, he makes the claim that true greatness comes kind of at the end of 10,000 hours worth of practice, of strong, dedicated practice. Some people have kind of questioned his results, suggesting that it's based on anecdotes and just stories that he'd come across, which isn't entirely true. It's based on research by K. Anderson Erickson, a psychologist who studied violin players at the Berlin Academy of Music. So they studied them, they split them into 3 different groups: the ones who were incredible, the ones who were pros, probably going to be orchestra musicians, and the ones who would just be teachers. And they found that the pros had studied 10,000 hours, the stars had studied 10,000 hours, the pros had studied about 8,000 hours, and the teachers closer to 4,000 hours. They also found that there wasn't any cases where somebody had spent the huge amount of time, the 10,000 hours, and weren't stars. Nor did they find people who had only studied maybe 6,000 hours and were stars. There was a direct and strong correlation between the amount of time that somebody put in and how good they were, and this was almost invariable. They repeated the study on pianists. And further, the information is kind of supported by work by neurologists. He mentions Daniel Levitin in the book. And further, another psychologist named Michael Howe, who studied the life of Mozart, suggesting that the greatest works by Mozart had come after a period that looked like 10,000 hours or so of him doing work. And then he does add anecdotal evidence, definitely. Things like Bobby Fischer, the chess player, the Beatles, Bill Joy, a computer programmer, and Bill Gates, another computer programmer. So, this evidence seems to be relatively solid across the board. And in a sense, we all kind of believe this. We all already know that practice makes perfect. These are the things that we've been taught ever since we were young. We look at sports players. We look at even people for drawing or for music or for just about anything that requires a huge amount of skill. We've been taught that a large amount of practice is what differentiates the good from the not so good. All Malcom Gladwell did was put a time scale on it, 10,000 hours. And regardless of whether or not it's the exact number, like you go 9,999 hours and then 10,000 hours, snap, you're a star. I don't think anybody really believes that, but it does give you a general idea of how much time it's going to take. So let's think about that in the sense of how much time do you have to put in, right now, today. So sometimes somebody will say to you, if you're learning guitar, an hour a day, practice an hour a day. Turns out that doesn't actually add up to very much. That's 7 hours a week, which is 364 hours a year. It'd take you 27 years, 1 hour a day to get to 10,000 hours. It's quite a bit of years, and the numbers are similarly bleak as you add them up. 2 hours a day, you drop that down to 13 years. 3 hours a day, 4 hours a day, about 5 hours a day. 5 hours a day, you could do it in about 5.5 years. But if you think about 5 hours of dedicated study, that's almost a full work day. The amount of time you actually put in working, 5 hours, it's quite a bit. Now me personally, I haven't played for about 12 or 13 years, but I would be pretty lucky, I think, to say that I've put in 2,500 hours of solid and honest practice. Practicing scales, practicing modes, practicing chord shapes, practicing technique, legato and hammer-ons and all that kind of stuff, vibrato. So in the end, I have quite a long way to go. But on the other side, it's almost like a weight off my shoulders. At 2,500 hours, I shouldn't even be good enough to be a teacher, and I probably am not. I think that I have that room for improvement, which only time can do. So in my mind, I would like to be a professional level musician, and I'd like to do that in 3 years. I'd like to put in the work in order to get to that level. 8,000 hours, according to Malcom Gladwell, which I think is a perfectly reasonable number to aim for. In order to do that in 3 years, if I give myself 2,500 as a starting, I'm going to have to practice 5 hours a day, which is quite a bit of time. It's, there's a lot of things to do in that amount of time. So 5 hours a day. And then I'd like to aim for 10,000 hours within 5 years. again, that works out to about 4 hours a day, in addition to the original goal. So I'm planning to post this progress weekly onto YouTube, to serve as almost a inspiration to other people who might be thinking about doing something like this, other people who would like to get to a really high level. Maybe you believe that you put in a large amount of time and you're not playing like Jimi Hendrix yet. Well, maybe if you can see what it actually takes, how much time it takes in order to get from the level where I am, which is beginner, intermediate, to advanced, maybe that will inspire you to put in the same amount of work to get through those plateaus, to get through those long periods where you don't feel like you're making progress, with the knowledge that you will cross those barriers if you put in the time correctly. And hopefully I'll be able to find a way to make a little money doing this as well, because playing 5 hours a day won't leave me a lot of time to do things like do work for money. So I hope maybe I'll be able to sell some transcriptions, work that I've done myself, maybe MP3s of the work I've done, or practice schedules, or I'm not sure, anything else I can, just to be able to move this forward. So I hope this is something that you'll be interested in looking at, and something that you'd be maybe interested in doing yourself. And if you do, then good luck.